Okay, this is a quick video lesson review on how to effectively use and explain personal experience as evidence in the argument essay for the AP test. The argument essay is unique in that you don't have any sources to pull evidence from. So most of the evidence you have will have to come from things you've read and just remember, and primarily from using specific personal experiences as evidence. When we say specific personal experience, we're talking about a short description of a specific event that occurred that you either witnessed or were a part of. Um, there are some important things to remember about using these personal experiences. One common mistake students sometimes make when they try to use personal experience as evidence in this essay is that they use a hypothetical situation. Now, you can use a hypothetical situation as evidence, but often it leads to weaker evidence. If you have a personal experience, a specific event that you can talk about instead, that's always going to be the stronger option because it creates an ethos appeal or a credibility appeal. The other mistake that occurs is that sometimes students are too general with their experience. They kind of talk in general terms and they never give specific details, which brings us to the point that any details you can add when you describe that experience that you're using as evidence to support your idea, any details just make that stronger. What do we mean by details? Some of the ways you can add details to your personal experience would be discussing what you were thinking during that experience, or what you saw during that experience, or what people said or did throughout that experience. Any specific names or locations you can give. That all adds detail to your personal experience that will add credibility to your argument. And that's how you have evidence for this argument essay. It's not always enough just to tell about the experience. Sometimes students will tell about an experience in this essay that they mean to use as evidence, but they don't explain it. They don't interpret it for the audience. Instead, they assume that the audience will just understand what point they're trying to make. This is a big mistake. You want to make sure that you explain the experience. It also helps to explain the experience you just described and to tell the audience what they should have learned or got out of the story you just told. Make sure you show how the evidence you just gave connects to the thesis statement that you stated at the beginning. If you assume that they'll figure it out on your own, that's something that can really end up confusing your audience and for the AP test, not allow you to score a high score. Let's look at a couple of student examples from our classes and see what we're talking about here. These are some particularly good examples. Let's start here. Take a second to pause and read this page. Go ahead and read the rest of this. Now, what you may have noticed as you read are several things. This description of a personal experience gets into specific details. It talks through the situation, and we have names, and we have specific details, what the test was, what happened, and they really walk us through this. And then this part in orange is what really takes this piece to the next level because they didn't just leave the story there. They took a few sentences to explain and to kind of interpret and to kind of point out what we should have gotten away from that. And that is absolutely a perfect picture of what we're looking for on these AP argument essays. You have to have evidence, and that evidence is most often going to be personal experience, explained with detail, or told with detail, and then explained. Let's look at another example. Again, take a minute to pause the screen and read through this. And the next page. Again, take a second to pause. Okay, let's look at this one. They take the time to talk through the whole experience. They bring up the details about what the project was. They don't just speak in general terms. They don't just say, there's lots of times where the book doesn't work out. They talk about a specific example when they were studying the Civil War. And again, you'll also notice that they took a couple of sentences after explaining that experience to really hit their point home and to show how that experience connects to their thesis statement. That's the level of detail and explanation that should go into every personal experience that you try to use as evidence on the argument essay. You should try to have, like three chunks of this personal experience that's explained at least, just so you provide enough evidence to support your argument. Make sure you have lots of detail and make sure you explain it. If you're reviewing this lesson as a part of our AP exam review, one of the things you're going to want to do is go back through your argument essays and look at where you could improve that and look at where you could add detail and practice that. And that's all for this lesson.